right? So you can see that the law has a scope in the sense that it has an area of operation, but under certain circumstances and conditions, it just can't work any further than it has worked already. Secondly, each law has a scope in the sense of what it operates upon. So we are very, very used in the physical universe to seeing all the physical laws. So you could say the law of gravity. I'll just write things a bit more clearly than I am. So the law of gravity. Can anyone see the green easily? No, it's not very good, so we'll throw that one away as well. And we'll use the black. Has a physical scope in the sense that it operates upon my physical or anything with mass. So it operates upon my physical body, it operates upon anything that has mass. Now, if something doesn't have mass, or there's another law that involves it, in other words, it becomes a gas or some other kind of law involves, or there's an updraft, therefore the things with mass don't fall to the ground. And that's why we have clouds in the air that have millions and millions and millions of tons of water sitting up there, but because of different laws, not just the law of gravity, they stay in the air instead of all falling to the ground. Right? So the law of gravity has a scope of operation. Now, we can then assume that if the law of gravity has a scope of operation and the law of aerodynamics have a scope of operation and all the other physical laws that we see have a similar scope, then we must also see that if we're going to talk about a law of attraction, that it must also have a scope of operation. And if the laws that we've looked at, so the law of gravity has a hierarchy, or it's a part of a hierarchy, if you like. So if it's a part of a hierarchy, then it would make sense that the law of attraction is a part of a hierarchy of laws. It's a logical conclusion that we can come to. So, the law of attraction, we could then state, is a part of a hierarchy of laws, and it has a scope. It has a scope of operation. What does it operate upon? Well, the law of attraction operates upon very similar things to what all the other laws operate upon, or many of the other laws operate upon. So let's look at the types of things that the laws can operate upon. Firstly, there is everything in the physical universe. So there we're talking about anything that we can see with our eyes or measure with whatever equipment that we've currently come up with measuring. And even some things that we can't see with our eyes still exist, like, when we feel the breeze on our face, we know that we're feeling and we're breathing oxygen. It's something we don't see, but it is definitely something that we feel and benefit from. So we know that there are physical laws that affect all of the operations of those things. So you could say the scope of God's laws include physical, whatever is happening to us physically. In addition to that, we have what is called a spiritual body or a spiritual form. And there must be laws, just like there are laws that operate upon our physical body. There must also be laws, it would make sense that there are, that operate upon our spiritual body. So you could say part of the scope that we have about the laws will be spiritual in nature. In other words, they'll operate upon the material that makes up our spiritual body. Now, have many of you, are all of you aware that there is a spiritual body? Like you are made up of a physical body as well as a spiritual body? Most of you are aware of that? Because I'm very happy to digress on some of this discussion and fill in the gaps if you're not aware. So just yell out if you're not. So you could say that part of our nature is that we have a physical body. So there's my physical body, drawn very quickly, and there's my spiritual body. The two are joined together through a cord. It's called the silver cord. And also, many spirits are not aware of, but we are also one half of a soul. So this part is our soul, and that's our spirit body and our physical body. So the laws, all of the laws, operate upon the physical body. They also operate upon the spiritual body, and they also operate upon the soul. this being the half of ourselves. So you could view your physical body just as a robot that your soul uses in the physical world to express itself and experience the world. Does that make sense? And you could use the spirit body, if you could view it this way, as a more finer construction of material that has a different set of laws that determine its construction. It has a genetic structure still, and this spirit body can only exist it exists in all forms in the universe, but it only can be seen by other people who are in the same body, if you like, most of the time. Although many of you at times have seen a person in a spirit body, or potentially. The reality is that we can eventually see a spirit person, but you could still view that as a robot used by the soul to express itself in the spirit world. Does that make sense? Right? So what I'm saying is that this is the real you, and these two things are just the robots that the real you, or the mechanisms, the physical structures that the real you uses to express itself. Yeah? Does that make sense to everyone? It's very important that you understand that, because we want to understand that the scope of the laws operate upon the three parts of our nature, not just on the physical level. And in fact, what you will find is that there are far more laws that God has made that actually operate upon the highest part of our nature, our soul, than there are that operate upon any other thing in the universe. So there are far more laws that operate upon the soul. And if we define the soul as the real you, that's your personality, if you like. That's the person of yourself, the personality. It's the emotions that you have, the desires that you have, the passions that you have, all of the feelings that you have, and so forth. That's the real you. And you know, sometimes what goes on in your mind is not really the real you, actually, because your mind can be influenced by other people quite readily, if you think about it. Somebody can drop a thought into your mind, but it's very, very hard to drop a feeling into your soul without you being open and aware of that occurring. Okay. Is there any questions so far? Yeah, if we wait for the microphone. Can you wait for the microphone there? Thank you.
I just can feel that I'm reacting on what you say about personality and real you. For me, personality is something that is created by our lives and our mind very much. Personality is, for me, not the essence of the real me.
Well, actually, I would say your personality is made up of two things. Firstly, it's part of what God created as a part of your being, but then also it's about your experiences. So it's a mixture of your experiences along with what God originally created or intended. So every single person that God's ever created was created differently to every other individual, and that's a part of what I view as their real personality. Often what a person portrays to the world is not their real personality, but rather a figment of their mind during their life's experience, which is not the same thing as their real personality. Does that make sense? Mario, with that slider I noticed, just as a side point, whenever you put your finger on it, and slide it, if we set that level of that mic just once and leave it, you'll find that there's something wrong with that slider. I just noticed that just as I was setting up. Yeah. Can you just speak into the mic again for me? You can say anything you like.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
That's better.
Now I'm with you with the personality. There is a difference. There are like two personalities. One that is created by this life, and then the real personality that you came here with your soul.
That you can also connect to and develop. But many people don't, because what they do is that personality is often suppressed by their parents in favour of what their parents want the child to be, and as a result the child goes up with seemingly a completely different nature than what God created the child to actually have. So when I'm talking about personality here, I'm talking about the real part, the one that God created, not the part through the experience that was created. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
Yep.
it's very important for me to make a clear difference
Sure.
there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Good. Okay, so if we call the soul the real you, right, then what I'm saying is that the laws operate upon the physical part of you, which I don't believe is the real you, because at some point in the future, that part will probably die and will be decomposed into the elements that compose this physical universe. And after all of that occurs, in the end, you'll still be you. So that's not the real you. And in fact, there is the potential that the spirit body as well may die. Nobody really knows that, but there is that potential that the spirit body will die. And but my feelings are the soul itself was created to live eternally, right? And in fact, to expand eternally. But the laws operate upon each one. So if we're going to examine the law of attraction, we've got to expect that the law of attraction is going to operate upon these different levels of ourselves at different times. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. So any questions before I proceed? Yeah, if we wait for the microphone, it's just around the back room. Just if you can remember to wait for the microphone, otherwise everyone won't hear.
As you mentioned, how the personal body and the spiritual body was in comparison with the soul, you mentioned the word robot. I wonder if there is a special reason why you choose that word, or
No.
could you as well use tools for the soul, or?
Yeah, there's no special reason. You'll find with me, generally, I'm a pretty plain speaker, and there's no hidden agendas. So when I use the term robot, it's just a way of saying it's a living organism that is used by the entity of our soul to express itself. And the soul doesn't need that living organism to exist. So, and this is why I sort of view it like a robot almost, like it's something that's automated by the soul, something completely different.
Yeah, for me, many words seem that they might be not the same.
I agree.
The same word for you as me, and there are many metaphors built in different things, like robot or tool. But so I think that you also talk with in metaphors.
I would use those two metaphors interchangeably. Like the physical body is a tool that the soul uses, or you could say it's a robot the soul uses, or it's to be frank, what it is a genetically structured living organism that is connected to your soul that the soul uses to express itself. Yeah. Yep. In a physical universe.
Yeah. How do you make a difference about emotions and feelings? You use that word now and then.
Yeah, I'm not too hung up on the different terms for different words, to be frank. So I often use the term emotions and feelings interchangeably. I'm not a person who goes into a lot of what I would call nitpicking. We say in Australia. What is that? What would you say here? Hair splitting. Yeah, so I'm not the kind of person that will hair split about different words. My feelings are that emotions and feelings, while you could define some feelings as specifically as feelings and some particular sensations you have as emotions, in the end, the way that I normally think of feelings are as something that you physically are able to sense through some of your input structure, which is your body, whereas emotions are something that come from within yourself, if we wanted to separate the two. But I sometimes don't bother separating the two in a discussion like this. So often I feel the soul is like a storing house of all of the different feelings and sensations that we've had throughout our entire existence, as well as all the different emotions that we've had throughout of our entire existence, as well as all the different belief structures that we currently possess, and also all of our intellectual nature, all of our personality, all rolled up into a ball, if you like, and I would call that our soul or our true self. And our true self can be damaged, I feel. So a lot of people believe it can't be, but I feel that our true self, and I don't mean the self that God created us to be, but the self that we've embraced through the process of our life can get damaged through the choices that we make in particular. But also the choices that other people make can damage our true self. But I would still look at the feelings, the emotions as all being a part of the soul, the actual real person. And in fact, when you speak with spirits in the spirit world, you'll find that many of their feelings and sensations that they had when they were on earth, they remember them completely, and they also have them in even more stronger sensations. So in other words, once a person leaves the physical and enters the spiritual life, often what they find is that their physical sensations increase in intensity through the spirit body compared with the sensations that we had in our physical body. And when you discuss these things with spirits, you'll find that almost every spirit recognizes a huge increase in the sensitivity that they have towards their sensations of their body, but also their emotions as well. Yeah. Good question.
Hello, AJ. I have a question, and it's two parts. I understand the physical body, and I understand the spiritual body. Spiritual body is one of...
Yeah.
I know how it feels to feel the spiritual body, but soul, where is it? And where I am, if when I'm not in my spiritual body or in my physical body,
Yep.
where I am.
Okay, well, firstly, there's your physical body. If we had to actually right now, because you are now consciously awake, right now, your physical body is like that, but I should probably draw the gender correction, perhaps. But you're sitting down, but this is your body. That's your physical body. Your spirit body actually is almost identical to your physical body in its genetic structure, and it overlays your physical body. It's a bit larger than your physical body, and it overlays it. So it's right there with you right now. And then your soul is an energy structure that is not created by your parents, but rather created by God. And so it doesn't have the same structure. It doesn't have a physical form, but it envelops both bodies. Do you understand what I mean by it covers over? It's like an envelope in which both bodies exist. Yes?
So I'm with my soul all the time. How can I feel the soul, though?
When you say you're with your soul all the time, let's define that, shall we?
I understand that it's around me.
Yeah. So your physical body is not necessarily with your soul all the time, but rather is connected to your soul via the spirit body. So, for example, when you go to sleep at night, what happens is the two bodies that envelope each other just before you went to sleep, the spirit body and the soul itself go away from the physical body. Every night you go to sleep. Do you understand? And as you go away, your soul is still enveloping the spirit body, but it's the spirit body that has the energy connection with the material body. And there's a cord, and they call it a silver cord, but it's a stretching material. It's a chain of energy that transmits all of the what you would call nervous system impulses via the spinal cord to the spirit body, right? And as a result of that, what it does when you go to sleep at night, this cord maintains connection between your physical body and now your soul and your spirit body is elsewhere. So if you imagine it, you're lying down, so draw you lying down, okay? As you leave your body, your spirit body leaves your body, so you see your spirit body will leave it, and your soul is still enveloping your spirit body, and it's your spirit body that has the connection with the physical body via a cord. And it's an energetic structure in which information transmits back and forward. So when this body's bladder is full, it's transmitting to the soul. The soul is floating around in the spirit world in different locations, and we'll talk about where and what later. And it feels the sensation, the bladder is full. Now, most of you don't like a wet bed, so you respond to that. right? You respond to that call of the physical body sensation. So the physical body is transmitting an impulse to the soul saying, I need to go to the toilet, I need to go to the toilet, I need to, right? And because you have to wake up to do that, unless you're willing to wet the bed, then the body comes back and overcloaks, and then you get up, go to the toilet, go back, go to sleep, and then go back to the spirit world again, right? So this is what happens every single time you wake up from a sleep. There's a call coming from your body, from your physical body. And I'm just sort that out. It's going to be a bit of a nuisance. I'm going to have to definitely strap it down at some point. And so you now have this process going on between the bodies. Just need to have a drink. Thanks, Anna. Okay. So the relationship between it is this. While you are completely conscious and awake, your body and your spirit body and your soul are all together at the same time. But when you go to sleep, your spirit body and your soul leave. And in fact, your spirit body is still connected to your physical body through this cord, but your spirit body can have sensory inputs, feelings and emotions from the experience in its sleep state. So every single time you go to sleep at night, you are actually alive and awake in your sleep state, in the spirit form, having an experience. Now, most people on earth don't remember it because we're too afraid to remember it. And so we have a tendency to shut down everything we're afraid of, and so therefore we don't remember our experiences. However, many of you do remember your experiences, or at least parts of them, through the course of a night. And that's an indication of what is happening. So what I am saying is the law of attraction, and in fact I'm saying that all of God's laws have a hierarchy and scope of operation which in particular affects this part of ourselves, the soul, the real self, but as a result of that will also affect the two bodies, the physical body and the spirit body. Yep. You want to ask Mary?
The lady's question was actually, how do you feel your soul?
How do you feel your soul?
Yeah.
Well, many of us do not feel our soul, unfortunately. It just depends on how sensitive we are to allowing all of our emotions and feelings at any one point in time as to how well we feel our soul. So if you could think of it this way, the best way to feel your soul is to experience every desire, every passion, every emotion, every feeling, every belief that you currently have. Now, a lot of people say, oh, I do that. And we go, hang on a sec, just hang on a sec. You think about the course of a day. How many of you want to be at work when you're at work? How many of you feel like you desperately want to get up in the morning and go to work? So quite a number, about 2 or 3 of an audience, right? That's fantastic that you feel that way, by the way, because that means that you're connected with your soul while you're at work. But for the majority of people in the Western world in particular, but also all through the world, in fact, many people don't want to do the things they do during the day. Whenever we don't want to do the things that we're actually doing, we are disconnecting from our soul. We are putting our soul into a state of denial of its own experience. Because to be there, we'd be unhappy. Does that make sense? Like for many of us, if we're not happy with the work we do, if we get up in the morning and go along to that job, we've got to disconnect from our feelings to a degree. We've got to disconnect from our emotions about that to a degree. And since we disconnect from our soul. So the way to remain connected with your soul is to remain connected with your desires, remain connected with your passions, your longings, your feelings, your emotions all the time. In addition, do what they ask you to do when they're in harmony with love. So the rest of us who didn't put up our hand about the job, if we were truly connected with our soul, we'd wake up in the morning and we'd say, I don't want to go to work today. And we wouldn't. We wouldn't go to work. Now, a lot of people go, well, that's pretty impractical. Well, it depends. You see, if you had a job that you loved, then you'd wake up in the morning, wouldn't you? And you'd go, I really want to go to work today. And in fact, would you even view it as work? You wouldn't, would you? You'd view it, oh, I'm just going to get up and have some fun again today. That's how you would actually see your life. And therefore, you'd be much more connected to your soul. But for the majority of us, we've learnt through society pressure and different problems that we face during our life, we've learnt to suppress our desires and passions in favour of a practical existence, what we view as one. Right? And unfortunately, we disconnect from our soul doing that. So to truly connect with your soul, you've got to stay connected with those desires and passions, those longings, and live in the truth of it. Many of us have a partial connection with our soul in that we do connect with what we like and what we don't like. But unfortunately, we don't live in the truth of it. In other words, we have a tendency to ignore it too many times. So we ignore what we really would like all the time. You think about it in a relationship. Quite often in a relationship, there will be a feeling of discontent about something. And then what we do is our head clicks into gear and we go, well, if I raise that, the last time I raised that, she got really angry with me about that. I don't know if it's wise for me to raise, and last time she raised it, we didn't have sex for a week and it was just terrible. And the last time I raised that, you know, she was pretty bitter with me and, you know, like, and I go, well, I don't think I want to raise that. But our soul is really saying that we need to raise it still. And so this is where we start to do compromises. And when we compromise, we're actually compromising our soul. Right? So if you can bear that in mind, does that answer that question enough? I'm just going to try and fix up this thing of mine. That's a bit better, isn't it? Yeah. Yes, if we can. Oh, sorry.
How do you see the soul and the subconscious mind, soul, spirit, towards the subconscious mind?
All right, let's answer that question. I've answered it quite a lot of times before in different discussions, but let's look at it again. So here's our physical body, here's our spirit body, and here's our soul. So it's female in this case. Now, what most people call their subconscious mind, I would actually call the soul. Right? Now, for many people, it's subconscious because they're suppressing it constantly. The truth is that you don't have to have a subconscious mind. You could have a completely conscious mind on every single issue. And therefore, the subconscious, the so-called subconscious mind, doesn't really exist unless we suppress our soul. Right? That's the feelings I have. We actually do have a mind which exists in our spirit body, and we do have a brain which exists in our physical body. But the brain doesn't actually store information. A lot of people in the medical profession believes it does, but it actually doesn't. It's the mind of the spirit body that stores a lot of the information. And proof of that is this. When a person has a stroke, a part of the brain dies. That make sense? Everyone understands that? And yet that same person a few years later can remember the bits of information that they lost when they had the stroke. That means that the brain didn't store the information. The information must be stored in some other location. It's quite logical, isn't it? Yep. And the information is stored in another location, yes. The brain is actually a living organism that helps this robot have the experience of the sensations that it is gathering through the experience. And those sensations, as I pointed out to you, are passed to the spirit body, and then those sensations that happen in the spirit body are passed to the soul. And the soul remembers every single experience from the moment of your incarnation.
Well, can you imagine a society in which we're all the time connected to our soul, and that this would not be chaos, but there would be some hidden harmony in the world?
Yes, well, for us all to be connected with our soul and for there to be no chaos, we would all have to be in harmony with love. That's my belief. So as soon as one person got out of harmony with love, they would begin to create chaos if they lived in their soul. So that, I feel, is a good reason to put the onus back on all of us individually to learn to live in harmony with love with everything that we do. When we live in harmony with love, there would actually, in the end, be no chaos and everything would be very orderly, but also everything would be done with passion and desire and be joyful. And I do imagine a life like that. In the spirit world where Mary and I have lived for quite some time, there are places above the 8th dimension of the spirit world that are completely like that. That every single person is living in harmony with their soul and not a single bit of chaos. Everything is lovely, organised as well, and beautiful to experience. And I believe that is a possibility for the earth. But it just depends on us embracing that possibility individually. Yep. Okay.